Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 28th of April, and well, we had another interesting day. It was a lot of back and forth action, but late in the day, caught a stronger bid and kept going. Got just above the 23, retraced back, and then fought right back towards it. And well, we ended up with the orange dipping. It's still in that no man's zone, but green has stayed above red in this particular case. So I think there's the potential that we could see some more back and forth action with that. You still have magenta leading yellow, but white has moved above it. That is usually a bit more of a negative for it. So all in all, I think that there's still some general weakness. And again, you're going to have to see a close above that 23% on a daily to really get anything going. And that's at 42.20. Just to keep as a reference. Of course, intraday, you're going to see the action unfold that would really give that a stronger indication. So the NASDAQ, having been weaker and fulfilled that dip to the zero with the white leading, still is, but now you have magenta over, and similar from a DOC standpoint as well as shakeout, still continuing negative, but we've been above the red line, having been below it, so this is what you would call a divergence setup. But it also has to close above that 23%, easy to see, 13.383. But I would look for more back and forth. I think there's going to be a consolidation that has to take place to really pump it. We started to see some quite interesting action, got a little wild at times. You'll see it on the intraday. Looking here at the euro, well, we've been talking about the disaster. Almost broke into the 104. That gets into danger zone, and you got to wonder at what point does the Fed decide to step in to at least support the euro. They asked the Japanese had asked the U.S. to do the same, and the U.S. declined, which has been somewhat of a help to U.S. Treasuries, because otherwise the yield would continue to rise dramatically. But foreign investors buying certainly helps, and so if you get a capital flight from Asia, Europe into the U.S. Treasuries, that helps keep rates from getting out of control, because at this particular point the Fed has been out of control in the sense that rates have been going faster than the Fed has actually been moving. The Fed obviously is going to catch up with the rate increase set up for May. The question will be whether it will be just 50 basis points or 3/4 of a point. That would be interesting. I think they're probably going to take the slow approach to it. But we'll see, because they needed to have been far more aggressive than they have been. But the Eurozone is suffering also from the gas shut off by Russia, because Poland and Bulgaria just refused to pay in rubles, and so they got turned off, and that just sent energy prices in that scoring, because you got to make up for that gap somewhere, and the only other place to do it is buy from other European suppliers, which puts pressure on already limited supplies. So a lot of problems there. Gold continuing its move back. I believe it's filled almost. Yep, that fills this wick down here for the 1883. So we'll see if it's able to garner any support. It had an opportunity the other day, but the magenta continued to fade lower. And, you've been nowhere near it as far as DOC red, and that's still dipping now below the 13.5 level. But minus 23 with the green, we would expect some type of turnaround. That might be enough to give it a bolster, but it's still pretty weak, and we're still below the red line on the extreme. So I would expect some more softness within that setup as well. Here you have oil, still holding above the hundreds, and still looking positive from this standpoint. And if that contagion from Russia continues, that could get worse. So we'll keep an eye on it. But treasuries here coming back just a little bit. Magenta had faded from that one, so a little bit of a dry up. It's going to take quite a bit to keep that under wraps. And like we were talking about, the capital flight from foreign countries would be necessary to do it, but at least it's not at the lows from that standpoint, which means rates rose a little bit, but not at its worst state yet. Bitcoin, after its dip, caught a little bit of a bid there with the magenta leading all the way through, and then when it finally started to collapse, the white moved underneath it. It stayed above 33 until midpoint in there, and then it kind of just chopped back and forth with that up and down. It gets a little tough in between those when that happens, where you get that pivot down, you're like, okay, this looks good for a short setup, and then reverts. In this particular case, we had the DOC with that dip of orange underneath the red and the rising green. So again, 50%, and right at that 39 is exactly the area that we talked about. I think that you're okay from a short viewpoint until it breaks above that 39. But this particular stage looks like it should be able to do that with what we're seeing here. You got steel rising, so short-term buyers, as well as the orange dip. That should be enough to get it over the hump, but it's proven to be a pretty consistent resistance point, 39, and that range between that 39 and 40. So I think it's going to depend on market conditions and whether or not there's a free up of capital to return today. Filled in on the ES about half of what that dip was from before. So it was pretty normal from what you would expect after a significant drop off like that. ETH, it's pretty clean. I mean, the ups and the downs were all pretty satisfactory per the readings. I didn't have any objections with any of that going forward in there. The 50K, just kind of in that consolidation, because you get right at the 50%, wasn't able to do anything, started to break down. From our viewpoint, it would be like wanting to exit right up in there, or at least have break even set. A little more generous from the program standpoint, and a little bit of decline with that one, and then decided to short it right there as the white was leading, and that was pretty good until one last bar, which lifted the magenta was going, and boom. So that it happens. But intraday, this was the 5K, so we started off with that post-market little rally there, and I was talking about how that hunt those short stops. And it worked out pretty well. Had a few positive extremes. They filled them back in the pre-market and that. And then early on, things were a little soft and started to catch up steam right before the open. So the pre-market open hour before, and that caught some strength. But a little bit into the right as we were about to get to that straightaway open, we were right at that previous 42.16 algo, and caught weakness, white, pivot underneath 25 with the magenta, and boom, went all the way down to the 0%. Fought a little bit and then continued to make it when the next spike came. And then we caught a little bit of strength coming back in there. Again, orange dip, P2. So that was definitely what I look for after a big drop like that. You expect a little bit of a rebound with that initial one that is well under the 23 level for the red DOC, but got held up right around the 23, and then once that spread took place and the pivot down, it was back to the lows and fought right back up. Crossover, everything was good with that. And we popped up nicely, and it kept going. We had a couple of nice little waves. We got in between the two algos that were from the previous day, which was interesting because clearly more volume needed to be had to satisfy the algos that were trading in between there. And then we just kind of traded in mumbo jumbo, but we had these pretty good sized fast bars that go down, then we come back up, and then violent shoot-ups and consolidations, and just literally someone acquiring a significant position all right around that 42.16. And then it began to do a fade, drop back below the secondary one, and stayed pretty much through there all the way towards the close, and then just right as the close happened, boom. That's again, just beautiful because they wait for the regular sessions to close, no more options, and you got lighter liquidity, and boom, makes it real easy to take advantage of that. And again, anyone who is holding on short without having their stop, or if they had their stop in place, it certainly got hit, and there was probably enough of them because that's what certainly drove it pretty darn fast. Right up to the peak, those were all on positive extremes, at least in the last couple, and that initial one, which was right up here, but it faded back from there. All in all, good action. As always, though, keep updating you on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.